Welcome back to the channel, Hobby1 Kenobi here. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe to my channel. My next build is the Trumpeter 1/35th scale T-80BV. As a kid, I always wanted to build the DML kit T-80 with ERA. I thought it looked impressive with the ERA blocks. DML did put out a bunch of Russian armor kits in the early 1990s, and I have built two Russian vehicles based on these early DML kits: the SA-9 Gaskin and the ZSU-23 Shilka. Before jumping into the build, I decided to prepare many pieces by removing them from the sprue and cleaning up their flash lines. The suspension was tackled first. Small photo etch circles were cut out and applied to the suspension. I found that the spring and arms needed to be glued before attaching them to the hull. I used quick drying Tamiya Extra Thin. Once the suspension was glued to the hull, the glue had enough wiggle room, so I was able to bring the attachment points to their attachment holes. Next, an armor plate was attached to the front of the hull. The parts seemed to be welded, so I used Tamiya Extra Thin to melt the plastic, and I used a toothpick to apply pressure to the welded areas to make sure that they were attached well. Finally, it was time to attach the upper hull plate. The piece went on fine, but out of an abundance of caution, I decided to leave the rear portion of the plate unglued until I attached the grille and the engine panels. I dry fit all three of the rear panels and found that the fit was in fact too tight. I decided to attach the rearmost panel, then find ways to relieve pressure of the other two panels. The first area I decided to work down was at the hinges for the engine panel. This seemed a good candidate for adjustments, as it seemed the hinges were creating a seam along the edge. The hinges were thinned by removing plastic with an X-Acto knife and sanded to reduce their length. While this work did help, more work was still needed to be done. I found that the edge of the engine panel could also afford to have some plastic removed. This was sanded down with sanding sticks. Dry fitting the two panels, I found that the fit had improved and felt ready to add extra thin cement to the pieces. Using clamps, I took care to ensure the walls of the hull were at a good 90-degree angle. The driver hatch went on without issue. Next, it was time to add the photo-etched grills. Dry fitting showed that the photo-etched squares would not fit well, so I elected to carve plastic away from the frame. Scraping the plastic away with an X-Acto knife was the best way to make sure I was taking my time and removing plastic carefully. Even with all of this work, the grills themselves needed to be thinned at the sides. I used my freshly sharpened Tamiya side cutters to carefully cut thin strips of metal from the sides of the squares. This work did take a bit of time, but resulted in good fitting grills. Drops of extra thin superglue were added to the seam with a glue looper. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit like and feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.